Belgian Prime Minister Sophie Wilmes just announced that all cultural and sporting events are going to be prohibited here in Belgium until September. That means no concerts, no festivals. She said she wanted to send a very explicit message to festival organizers and concert promoters. You cannot plan these events in the next 5 months. Now, she only extended the lockdown in Belgium until at least the 3rd of May. That's earlier than, for instance, in neighboring France, where it's going to the 11th of May. Of course, they are ready to continue that extension. Now, there had been speculation that the Belgian government was going to come out with a lockdown exit strategy today. That's because many politicians in Flanders, the Dutch-speaking north part of the country, are calling for such an exit strategy. They're more fans of the more lax approach in neighboring Netherlands to the north, but in the south, in Wallonia, the French-speaking part, they're more fans of the French very severe restrictions, and they were really opposing any talk of an exit strategy, saying it's too early. So we didn't get an exit strategy today. Prime Minister Wilmes saying that it is too early to be talking about that, and any kind of future planning would be giving false promises. Now, the reason that Belgium was expected to maybe come out with this today is that the European Commission came out with an EU-wide coronavirus lockdown exit strategy today. Now, that had actually been ready next week, but France, Spain, and Italy pressured the Commission to wait to publish it because they didn't want it coming out before the Easter weekend. They were afraid it would send a bad message to people that maybe it was okay to go out over the Easter weekend. So we had it adopted today. Basically, it's seeking to coordinate the lockdown exits of EU member states so we don't get another chaotic, uncoordinated mess like we saw in the imposition of these lockdowns. But that week delay has seen a number of countries come out with their own national strategies, pretty much ignoring the EU advice. So it's been very difficult for the Commission to get a coordinated response here. But in these EU guidelines issued today, they said that the lockdown should be ended gradually in phases, and that lockdown exits shouldn't even begin until 3 criteria have been met. That is, if the virus has seen a steady diminishing, if there are enough hospital beds, and if there is large-scale testing in place. Now, Wilmes said today, although Belgium has seen a sustained decrease in cases, it really isn't at a place right now where there is enough hospital capacity or if there is widespread testing in place. Testing here in Belgium has actually been a big problem, so the country is really not ready for that. But going forward, EU member states are going to use these guidelines from the European Commission to devise their own national lockdown strategies. The biggest point that the Commission was making today is that these countries need to do this in coordination with their neighbors. Because, for instance, let's say Germany reopens stores, you could get a rush of people from France, where stores are still closed, crossing the border so that they can go shopping. So the countries need to work together to make sure that isn't happening. Now, the difficulty in coordinating member state responses hasn't just been a European thing. We've also seen this in America. The states, like in the EU, US states are mostly responsible for these type of measures, and they've had widely divergent responses. There are still many US states that have no lockdown in place at all. And we're seeing the White House, the Trump administration, also wants to come out with a US lockdown exit strategy, maybe later this week. Now, the design is really to put pressure on state governments to end their lockdowns earlier than they would like to. But in order to preempt this White House effort, 2 regional blocks of US states, a West Coast Pact and an East Coast Council, have been formed to coordinate their lockdown exits and basically ignore the White House strategy. So we're seeing an effort in regional coordination there. We may see a similar effort here in the EU, although we haven't had any measures like that yet. Right now, the EU executive, the Commission, is still trying to be the one coordinating this for all EU member states, even if they come out of these lockdowns at very different times, depending on when they've passed their peak period.